The Fairtrade Town campaign first started in Garstang and has spread a worldwide popular campaign. Can you tell us what your motivation was and how this campaign started? It was the Garstang Oxfam group that was responsible for starting the Fairtrade Town movement, and we held our first meeting in 1992, which was attended by just 3 people. There was myself as the chair, my wife and our babysitter. And I'd like to say that we set out to create an international movement for change, but that would be a lie. We were just 3 people that wanted to see an end to poverty, and we would do all we could in our own small town to help make that happen. At the time, I'd learned through Oxfam that a small child dies every 3 seconds from poverty, and that this was preventable, and therefore, in my mind, it was totally unacceptable. And for me, this was quite simply the greatest injustice in our world today, and I needed to do everything I could to fight it. That was my motivation then, and sadly, because it's still true today, that is still my motivation today. As an Oxfam group, we campaigned on many issues to do with global poverty, but fair trade soon became the main focus for our campaigning. Over time, we recruited new members and the group became larger. But throughout the 1990s, our fair trade campaign in Garstang was failing. We were failing to reach out to the people in the community. We even did a campaign once where we donated catering packs of Cafe Direct Fair Trade coffee to all the faith groups in Garstang, but only 3 out of the 6 took up our offer to continue using it. So we were feeling quite frustrated, and we just weren't succeeding with our campaign. And I know that many of you today feel the same way when you're campaigning out on the streets trying to get people to listen to your message. But there is hope when you consider that a meeting of just 3 people led to an international movement for change, now consisting of over 2,000 fair trade towns in over 30 countries. So despite the fact we were getting no success, we persisted, and in Fair Trade Fortnight in the year 2000, I had this idea that we would hold a meal, and we would invite all the people we were failing to reach. That was all the heads of churches, the heads of schools, the local council, local businesses, and we put them all in a room and we gave them a 3-course meal made up entirely of fair trade and local produce. Garstang is a rural community, so it's surrounded by farmers, and although the issue was a little bit not so severe with farmers in our locality compared to farmers in a country like Ghana, we realised the issues were the same. We still had farmers locally committing suicide because of the price of milk, and they also wanted a fair price to cover the cost of production and give them an income. So we made our meal consist of fair trade and local produce, and we weren't asking people to pay for the meal, nor were we even accepting any donations. We thought that'd be far too easy. If people gave us money, they could just walk away feeling that they'd done their bit. So instead we asked them to sign a pledge form stating that they would support fair trade, use fair trade products and support local farmers too. And then in the run up to the meal, I remember one time it was in the middle of the night, just waking up and having this thought that if we succeeded in getting all these people to sign these pledges, we would in fact have created a fair trade community or a fair trade town. The meal went by and eventually we got all the churches, all the schools, 95% of all the businesses and the local council signing up to the pledge form to say they would use fair trade products and support local farmers. Then at the public meeting that followed in April of 2000, the people of Garstang voted to make our town the world's first fair trade town. From that point on, the rest is just history, and the fair trade town movement was created. This year, the COVID-19 pandemic is making things very difficult. As a founding member of this campaign, can you give us advice on the pathway that this campaign could take in the midst of the rapidly changing environment of climate change and COVID-19? As part of our fair trade campaign here in Garstang, we forged a link with the cocoa farmers from New Florida in Ghana, which went on to become Africa's first fair trade town. And that is why I so often wear this shirt. It's from Ghana, and when I'm speaking with you, it reminds me of the cocoa farmers that we're all trying to support and help through fair trade. And in Ghana they have an Adinkra symbol called Sankofa, which represents a bird looking back at its tail. In the local Twi language of the Ashanti region of Ghana, Sankofa means return and get it. That is, we should learn from our past, go back in time to look at our history to help us to go forward. In the same way, I should like to look back at the history of fair trade towns, how and why it started, in order to answer this question. So the Garstang Oxfam group that started the campaign was a campaign group working to see an end to poverty. Thus we worked on many issues concerned with global poverty, but fair trade soon became our main focus. But fair trade was just one vehicle in order to help us achieve our aim of relieving poverty. For me at least, fair trade towns was never just about supporting fair trade, but a way to strengthen this vehicle in order to take us towards a better world. And our fair trading campaign in Garstang also considered local farmers right from the start. And indeed, as the fair trade town movement spread to other countries, they often widened its scope to include local farmers or other global issues. With COVID-19 and climate change, these are very difficult times. And in countries like Korea and the UK, it would be very easy to feel we should be looking after ourselves rather than focus on poverty across the world. But we are still just one world together. We are all linked, and the issues that concern us all, such as climate change and poverty, are also linked. I was originally trained as a vet. I've never studied international development or environmental issues. But thanks to Oxfam, I've been taken on a journey. And through that journey, I've learned what is the right thing to do for ourselves and our planet. And I would now like other people to take the same or similar journey to what I took. I've had the great privilege in my life to visit cocoa farmers in Ghana, coffee farmers in Peru, and indeed dairy farmers here around Garstang in Lancashire. And they all say the same thing. Why can we not be paid a fair price for our produce that covers the cost of production and provide us with a sustainable livelihood? No farmer that I've ever met wants to cut costs in order to produce large quantities of cheap food at a cost to the environment. So the new movements we're seeing now developing across our world today, whether it be against racism with the Black Lives Matter movement, or taking climate change, or even dealing with COVID-19. I don't see any of these movements as being in conflict with each other. In fact, quite the opposite. I would say they embrace each other. Fair Trade Towns movement is driven by the grassroots. And this movement, now consisting of over 2,000 fair trade towns, provides us with an opportunity for us all to act together in solidarity to help us achieve a better, fairer world through whatever issues we tackle to help us achieve that. I heard that you're currently participating in a Beirut campaign. Can you explain what this campaign is about? Our Beirut appeal was launched as a response to the catastrophic explosion that on the 4th of August this year shook the city of Beirut in Lebanon. In just a few seconds the city was completely destroyed, leaving more than 180 people dead, 6,000 injured and over 250,000 people homeless. This blast accentuated the already terrible situation facing Lebanon, a country 7 times smaller than the Republic of Ireland, yet with a population almost 1.5 times greater, a third of which consists of refugees fleeing war-torn Syria and neighbouring countries. Along with the coronavirus pandemic, the economic collapse in Lebanon and the political turmoil, the explosion dissipated all remaining hope for the Lebanese people. With 9 fair trade villages in Lebanon, Lebanon is part of the Fair Trade Towns family, and in 2016 the Fair Trade village of Baskinta hosted the International Fair Trade Towns Conference with the theme Building Bridges Through Fair Trade. I now run a social enterprise called the Fig Tree, set up to support the Fair Trade Towns movement. In the spirit of the 2016 Fair Trade Towns Conference, the Fig Tree was asked by the International Fair Trade Towns Steering Committee to act as a bridge between fair trade towns internationally and the fair trade town of Baskinta. And we are now calling on fair trade towns across the world to help us raise funds for this appeal. Following the explosion, more than 40 volunteers responded to the Biskinta Beytuna organisation's call for a day of solidarity with the residents of Beirut, and therefore the Fair Citizen Initiative was launched. With your help, the Beytuna organisation will provide temporary accommodation for 20 families until their homes can be rebuilt. They can provide food baskets, hygiene and medication kits for the vulnerable families. They can provide materials needed for the renovation and or maintenance of affected homes and businesses. And they can provide sub-grants, financial grants, to help existing businesses affected by the explosion, or for new businesses to be set up. A donation of just £10, that's 15,001, will provide a family of 3 with a food basket to feed them for a day. £50, 74,001, will give a family of 3 a temporary shelter for 10 days along with basic essentials. And £100, 147,001, will help provide the reconstruction materials for a house or a shop. I shall never forget the warm hospitality and generosity that I received from the wonderful people in Lebanon when I visited there during my 2 visits to support and launch Fairtrade Towns in 2015 and during the Fairtrade Towns Conference in 2016. And I now appeal to the international Fairtrade Towns community to provide the support needed to help put Beirut and Lebanon back on its feet again. The cultures in Korea, the UK and Lebanon may be very, very different. But as fair trade towns in those countries, we all share one desire to promote fair trade and see an end to poverty. We now need to act in solidarity to support the fair trade town of Biskinta. Please help us reach our target to raise £30,000, that's 44 million won, towards providing much needed relief for the Lebanese people. Donations can be made through the Fig Tree website at fairtradecentre.org. As a founder and senior member of the Fairtrade Town campaign, would you like to give a congratulatory message to the participants of the Jungji Fortnight opening ceremony? The Korea Fairtrade Town movement is very special to me, and that is because 10 years ago, in April 2010, I was visited by Mr. Won-soon Park with his wife and daughter. They came to see me in Garstown because they wanted to learn about how the Fairtrade Town movement started, with the aim of bringing it to Korea. Mr. Park later became the Mayor of Seoul, and I was invited to see the launch of the Seoul Fairtrade City campaign in 2013, and again to see Seoul declare as the largest Fairtrade city in the world in 2018. I was most impressed with the changes that Mr. Park had made to the City Hall, and in particular in setting up the Fairtrade shop Earth Village, which we were proud to be able to call a member of the Fig Tree. And for a while they even sold our Fairtrade Fig Tree bean to bar chocolate made using beans from New Florida in Ghana, Africa's first Fairtrade town. Later, Jungji became a Fairtrade province with a population of over 13 million. And I'm told about half of your nation's population now live in 6 Fairtrade cities in Korea. Tragically, earlier this year, Mr. Park passed away. But the Fairtrade Town movement he has created in Korea will live on and continue to grow, for which all of you must feel very proud. The great strength of Fairtrade towns is they're not just about councils, schools, businesses, faith groups, but they're about all of these and much, much more. And what this means is that Fairtrade towns are about you. Not the person sitting next to you or your neighbour at home, but you. Every single one of you and all the people outside. Whatever job you do, however you spend your leisure time, whatever school your children go to, or whatever faith group you're a part of, you can in some way be involved with a local Fairtrade Town campaign near you. Following on from Mr. Park's lead, you have all made this happen, and I know you will continue to make it happen. For that I both congratulate you and I thank you for all the support you're showing for Fairtrade farmers across the world. Thank you and keep going.